This is the 219th episode of CloudFocus Weekly for the third week of July 2015. This episode is titled GTD Weekly Review. CloudFocus Weekly is brought to you by Arkus, specializing in Salesforce implementations, consulting, and Force.com development. Search for Arkus, A-R-K-U-S, on the App Exchange and read what our clients have to say about us. I'm your host, Jason Howard, and joining me is the co-host, co-leader, co-founder, and can't think of anything else to say.
Anything else?
And co-Justin, or co-J, Justin Elsing. Justin, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I think the last we spoke, I was still getting over my month-long illness.
That's correct.
I'm free of disease, as far as I know.
Sorry, I'm just thinking STDs. I'm like, really? How do you know?
As far as I know, I'm good.
All right.
Doing good. Excited about our GTD Weekly Review pod. For those of you who don't study or practice GTD, thanks for downloading, kids. And
See you next
week. For those that are interested, hang on tight, because it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Right. So we'll do, we have a couple things beforehand because we did miss last week because
we did.
You were traveling.
I think you were traveling.
I was traveling.
I think I was traveling, too. We were both traveling.
Oh, we were both traveling
We were together, actually.
Together forever in Wisconsin.
Oh, we had such good cheese and
mussels.
Mussels and
2 pounds of mussels.
And alcoholic beer beverages.
It was good.
Unlike those unalcoholic beer beverages.
The nice thing about the place we went was that it was like that perfect temp. It was like 72 and just nice.
It had the outdoor patio.
Yes.
The only downside was there was a train that lasted about 16 miles long. It was like, hello, I'm the train with 850 cars.
Yes.
I'm transporting all of the dairy from here to wherever.
Cheese. There's a lot of cheese curds on that train.
Oh, a lot of
We did have some cheese curds.
curds.
After eating some cheese curds, I was like, oh, mozzarella sticks.
Not me.
He's not putting his head going yet. So I was all expecting like something unique, but we did have the warm artisanal cheese platter, which is a new one.
Change this to like a food show.
Stuff Jake and Justin eat.
Yeah.
Ooh, my nickname just came out. That just happened.
That just happened.
Jason and Justin eat things.
Oh, I could do such a good
We
pod.
could do so many podcasts. This is where I think, Leo Laporte did it. Eventually he did one podcast, he did two, and then he's like, I could just do podcasts on everything. I could do them on Google, I could do it on Apple, I could do it on iPad, I could do it on iPhone. I've thought of others for us.
I did a side note.
Side note.
I love the website Grantland, and I love their, even though, Bill Simmons is no longer there, I still like their content. And they have a podcast network, and they do this show every week where it's called like a micropod podcast. They time themselves. They only give themselves 15 minutes, and it just ends at 15 minutes.
Exactly
they just
what we
have
do.
to end it, and it's called Food News.
Okay.
With Juliet Littman and Dave Jacoby, and together, I think they're just hysterical.
So it doesn't really matter what they're talking about.
They're talking about food,
right?
For all 15 minutes, just crazy food news, and they're just insane, the two of them together. And it's kind of funny where like they have a timer and it starts 15 minutes, and then at the 10-minute mark, 10 minutes remaining, 5 minutes remaining, 1 minute remaining, and then a countdown from 10, and they're like sort of always like taste testing something at the end, and they just all right, see you next week.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You do have a eclectic mix of podcasts. I mean, everything from Game of Thrones podcast to food to sports
and sports.
You don't listen to tech though. He was tech more like fantasy football. That's probably in the regular season.
No, not now.
Right? No, they're useless now.
No, I like pop culture stuff too.
Right.
Listen to some tech podcasts.
I have a couple. Anyway, but I'm actually going to make one of them my pick of the week this week.
A tech podcast?
I'm going to make a podcast. So let's talk about the
blog posts. Let's get to them.
That we've had. So first up, and this is new to Arkus, is our new theory, because now the people's pictures are so prevalent on the blogs. We're actually going to talk about, except for one person. That person will never be named.
Never. Not even if there's a fire.
But Sylvia Cabral 2 weeks ago wrote ideas from Arkus employees in need of votes. So as you know, we are Everybody Blogs.
At Sylvia Cabral 44.
Oh, wow.
On Twitter.
Throwing out the Twitter handle.
Yeah. Well, that's where they're going to really find her.
Yeah. Anyway, so we can talk about, so there's a couple. Maybe I'll talk about the one that I did. My one.
Did you say what this was?
Yes, I said it was ideas from Arkus boys that need a vote. So it's app exchange ideas that have not turned into something and need votes.
Yeah.
Really just an interesting.
Need the votes.
We are all pretty big in idea exchange. We actually keep a sheet here at Arkus where we list all of ours, although some people throw in others, which that's not really the purpose of it, but whatever.
I throw in lots of others. Anything I've ever voted on that I feel like needs a vote.
Really?
That is the absolute purpose of that sheet.
No, the sheet of
you
it's
are
just to track,
misunderstanding the sheet.
the sheet is to track our stuff.
No, the sheet is to track
Well, it can do
anything
both.
that you need a vote on.
It can do both.
Because we can load in the votes. It's like,
Right.
I need this thing. Let's get some votes.
When we worked at the city that shall not be, or this company that shall not be named.
In that city that wasn't New York. Dart, Gotham. Where?
Jake.
Are you, Jake? Are you going to curse next?
We-
what's your next?
We
what's
used
your
to,
next
because we had
slip-up?
30,000 licenses, we used to go, wow, if we could get all of our
Just
people
everyone
to vote,
just vote.
we could get every feature we want turned
Yeah.
into something, because 30,000 votes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of what we
That's
did.
a lot of points.
It does help.
So why don't we just? I mean, you can name yours and I'll name mine.
And then everybody else
I
can
think
go to-
mine's a good idea.
Everybody else can go to blog.arkusinc.com. So there is in Salesforce a standard merge tool for merging accounts. And
Say what?
yeah, and it's on the accounts tab.
The accounts
Or-
home tab
or-
down there in the tools
Yes,
section.
it says
right?
merge, and you go in and it's a search when you first get there, and it says merge what, and you then type in the name. Now, if you have ABC Carpets and ABC Carpets, and you type in ABC Carpets and hit go, it will find both ABC Carpets.
magic.
Yeah, but it will not find Carpets, ABC.
Ooh, fail.
It won't find even anything. They have to start with the same set of letters.
Start. So even if you said carpets.
Yeah, it's not good. It will not find them.
Oh.
So, so the search is really bad. It's obviously based on some other search, because the real top level search would do it and find them. So it's something that they should either update. So I said, search entire account name with merge tool. So if you typed in carpets, you would get back both ABC Carpets, Carpets Inc., and Carpets, ABC, which you don't get back today. That's
Yeah.
mine. 110 points. Please vote.
It's weird that they now have better technology for this built onto the platform with the duplicate prevention.
Yeah.
And they didn't decide to take it and put it into other parts of the platform.
Right.
Because the technology exists with global search and with the dupe prevention. There is fuzzy logic there. Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. So my idea that needs some love, it only has 110 points. Same amount as yours, 110 points. I don't think there's a coincidence there.
Let's see if I have more now.
Yeah, maybe since this blog post went up, there have been
Hundreds. Oh, 50,000.
no. So mine's
140.
called. Oh, that's good. I'll take a look at mine. So mine is called. Mine's 120 now. Up to only one vote. So create a permission set from a profile. I'm looking at the people who voted. It's like
7,
our
8,
entire
9.
company and like
9
one
of
other
our entire
person.
company voted
All right,
on your.
So here's what I wanted. I wanted the ability to create a permission set from a profile. So you have this profile and you basically want to give out all the permissions that are within that profile to a user who has a different profile.
Right.
And instead of creating a permission set from scratch or creating a hybrid profile of the two, which I wouldn't recommend unless you really had to, I would really just want to press a button, and all a profile is under the covers is a permission set anyway.
Right.
Create a permission set from it. So the use case is that I have a customer service group that requires their own profile. I have another set of users that requires customer service functionality, but additionally requires some other functionality. Ideally, I'd have a profile for the customer service user and then hit the clone to permission set button and assign that permission set to the second set of users. It'd be just so much easier.
Oh, that'd be good.
Creating a profile you can still use the old interface,
Right.
not the like new UI, which is used for permission
The
sets.
one that we turn off.
The one I always turn off, the enhanced one, I
Yes.
turn the enhancement off.
Yes.
Sorry for those of you who I know.
It's just not built well. I mean, it's supposed to be easier to understand because everything's grouped.
It is easier to understand because it's grouped, but
it's
it's
not
harder to
powerful at
work
all.
with.
Right.
Like, I want everything in one screen and just be able to pound through and
Right.
check and uncheck boxes.
Right.
So creating a permission set, if it's a big permission set, like a permission set clone from a profile would be, is a timely, like that takes a lot of time. There's a lot of effort in there. So I wanted to be able to do it right from the profile. So that's my idea. Go vote.
Go.
Find it. It's called Create a Permission Set from a Profile. You can also the link is here on the blog post.
Or just go to blog.arkusinc.com
That's right.
and read the ideas from Arkus employees in
There's
need
a
of
couple
votes
more in there that need some votes too.
by Sylvia Cabral. Now, the other trick on the website now is that when you see their name at the top next to their pretty picture, you can click on it, and then it'll show you all of the content that they've written. So you can
sure
go look
can.
at everybody's blogging all the way back. Speaking of new bloggers,
Yep.
was I?
You were.
Entering in the race with her first blog post, Amy Bucciferro. Yes, you thought I was going to mess up her last name.
kinda
And I
did.
probably did. But she doesn't listen to the podcast either.
I feel like she does.
I think she does. Damn it. She wrote her first blog post called
Amy.
Getting Ready for Go with Marketing Automation and Salesforce. And this one is about not really sort of a comparison, or just sort of if you're setting up to get ready for doing marketing automation, and that's using either the Salesforce products of Marketing Cloud or Pardot or ExactTarget Pardot inside the Marketing Cloud, or just the other.
This is product agnostic.
Yeah, she mentions it, and we say Salesforce, so it's not that product agnostic. But I'm saying it's more of like
it's product agnostic from the standpoint of rolling out a marketing automation tool that is integrated with Salesforce.
Right. And if everybody hasn't stopped listening right then. So anyway, it's the
Stop
idea is to
right
think
now.
about, it's those of you who are out there who haven't done marketing automation. It's not quite like doing CRM. Like there's some aspects to it, but there's also some things you need to get in line. You need to think about in advance. Some things you might have thought about, some things you wouldn't. It's less about how do I say it? It's less about just sort of give me data and I'll stuff it in Salesforce and call it a day. It's a lot of thinking from the business side, and it's a lot of stuff that you need to tease out of yourself.
So is CRM, but okay.
Well, but CRM functions are very well defined. Marketing automation is not as well defined as a function. It means a lot of things. So it can mean I want to send some emails, but it also can mean I want to set up, a customer life history path with automation and triggering and stuff like that, which is very different. And you have to think through a lot of the scenarios. So anyway, it's a good blog post. I'd say go read it. It's not really something we can pick, but it's actually very long. I think Amy... we didn't give Amy a blog post should only be X spots, but she puts in a lot of good information, worth a read.
Totally worth a read. Where can you find her on Twitter?
You can find her at If It Floats. I'm just saying, If It Floats, which is in reference, I think. I mean, she says on a thing, but I think she has some sort of connection to some sort of floating boats.
She does.
Yes. So there's a thing to it. It's something that
floats.
Yes, if it floats.
If it floats,
IT
floats your boat.
Yes, she also posts a lot of Salesforce stuff as well. Okay, great. Let's get to our topic du jour. Oh, let's leave this to the last. Let's put this other item. I'm going to drop it down to the end.
You want to do that last?
Or maybe we can talk about it next time.
No.
Yes.
It must be announced now.
Okay, we'll do it last.
It's not a
then.
next time thing.
Or let's do it now then.
Dreamforce 15 concert's been
Foo Fighters.
announced. Oh my god, I'm so excited.
So let's recap. Justin's favorite experience at Dreamforce was the Foo Fighters contest. So the first one he went.
Great concert.
Great concert ever, and you're excited to have them go again.
And I saw them last night.
And you saw them last night. Did you say Dreamforce 15?
But I did tweet that I was preparing for Dreamforce by going to a Foo Fighters concert.
Did you wear your Dreamforce t-shirt to a Foo Fighters concert?
Nope, I was just wearing a regular old t-shirt. But I did buy a t-shirt at the concert, and I'm wearing it today.
So you're wearing the t-shirt of a concert you went to last night?
Yeah. Pretty cool. It says Queens, New York on it. It says Foo Fighters.
Nice.
It's pretty cool. It's a nice looking tee.
All right. So big news. Kind of strange that they're, recap or re-pulling in old bands, but
yeah, I bet that they were. This is a little later than they normally announce it, and I think the reason why is because Dave Grohl has this broken leg situation going on.
yes,
and at the concert last night, they built him. Little side note: I'm thinking he'll be able to walk by the time Dreamforce rolls around, but
well, that's
he
only
couldn't.
in 2 months.
Well, he couldn't last night.
Right.
I mean, he couldn't put any weight on his leg, and they built him a throne.
Of ease,
Like the Game of Thrones, like they built him like
the Iron Throne,
an iron throne
made of 1,000 swords.
Yes, and it like moves up and back the stage, like forwards and backwards, and it's got this special chair in it that he can just sit in and play his guitar and sing, and it's got light situation
what makes
going
the chair
out of it.
special?
Well, if you saw this chair, you'd know it was special. It's not a
I
regular
actually
old
don't
chair.
want him to be okay because I want to see the special chair.
Well, you're not going to keep your streak of never going to a Dreamforce concert alive.
8 concerts in a row.
You'll be missing out because Foo is fun.
Foo is fun.
Yeah.
Fu Manchu is fun.
Foo is fun.
I'm going to pull up my Dreamforce history here.
Of who the bands were?
And I say all the
Well, I
ones
feel like the first one that you went to was like In Excess or something. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Where's my Dreamforce history? I have a Dreamforce history.
So how far into this podcast are we?
We're 16 minutes.
So you want to talk about the weekly review or what?
Now
Or people downloaded and now it's like
that's
okay,
it.
Whatever.
All right. So here's what I'd like to. Here's what I want to kick this off.
Do you want to do this letting me know like what we're doing now during the podcast?
I did.
Well,
I let you know.
Give me the
wait.
format. I knew what we were doing. You didn't really give me the whole like.
I even
here's
wrote
what
out
I'd
questions.
like to do.
Well, I'm asking you. I'm not going to put you on the spot and say
That's
do
good.
it like the last time and interview me.
Right, because that wouldn't be fair.
'Cause
Although I think I can do it.
You could probably do it. I've actually asked questions. But what I did is, so what I want to say is this is probably the best follow-up to one we did in April 5th of 2013 called GTD, called Getting Things Done. So it's episode 132.
It's a special episode.
Special episode. The first, I think. Maybe second. Second.
It was a special episode where I just interviewed you for an hour, I think.
It's an hour and something. 89 minutes and 32 seconds.
Wow.
Yes.
You could talk about GTD.
I could. So I actually listened to it the other day.
Yeah. Did you like what you heard?
I did. It was
it
fascinating
engaging?
to listen to. It was engaging. It was interesting. It was interesting to hear you trying to wrangle me in and trying to get me to like be a good interviewee as opposed to just spouting knowledge, which is what I was doing.
Did you do a good job?
It was okay. Yeah, you'd be like, "Oh, wait, we're gonna get to that," and I'd be like, "Well," blah, 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 and I'd be on and off on different paths.
Maybe I wasn't being a good interview.
No, it was.
I think
It was good.
Just let you ramble.
It was good. So we're not going to talk about GTD.
We're not.
No, we're going to do basic. I'm going to do the top line because that podcast is still it's evergreen. That podcast is exactly the way it should listen to. It tells about our history, tells about great things we talk.
Can I ask you a hard question about GTD before we get to weekly review that'll lead us into weekly review?
Sure. Is this from your is this from your bandwagon days?
Bandwagon days. I don't even know what that means.
Falling.
I'm always on and off. But
what's your hard question?
All right. This is a really hard question. So, if you were to only,
you asked this
if you
in
were
the
to
podcast.
prioritize,
oh, okay. You asked this in the podcast from 2 years ago.
What did I ask?
What is the one thing in GTD that you would do as the most important thing?
This is akin to that, but not quite the same.
Okay, well, I'm giving it to you just so you don't make
If you
this
were
sick.
if you were to prioritize one of these two things, I was having this conversation with somebody.
Can we explain GTD first, and then you can ask that question?
Well, I thought you just told them to go listen to something from 2 years ago.
Yeah, but I just want to say what it is.
Back.
So it's a productivity methodology made by David Allen 16 years ago. He just put out a new book. It's very much has a lot of different pieces to it. It's very widely adopted, has a huge following on the interwebs, and as not only something that has changed my life and others around me, but is also something we practice here at Arkus. Like it is an Arkus principle. So go ahead. Good.
Mind like water now.
Yes.
Good.
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
So, if you were to prioritize one of these two core tenets
Yes.
of GTD,
One over the other?
one over the other,
Okay.
Ubiquitous Capture
I've already done this
versus
in the podcast.
Weekly Review.
I already did this in the podcast.
Did
You
you?
asked the question here, so I just listened to this. You asked the question, what is if you could take one thing away from GTD,
That's not
what would
what
it
I
be?
asked, though.
I know, but then I said it's Ubiquitous Capture and not even second close because I think Weekly Review is very, very important. And I said, but nothing works without Ubiquitous Capture.
All right,
not
then
Weekly
you just
Review.
answered the question.
Yes.
All right. I see it as a chicken-egg scenario, but...
No, because you can't if you're not capturing things in your life, you have nothing to review. It's not even chicken. It's like you have
But
to
if you
learn
don't
to capture
review them,
first.
what's the point of capturing them?
No, you
It's
need to
sort of
capture
a
them first.
chicken
Even
egg.
people who
Anyway, whatever.
Well,
Who
I'll
cares?
give you an example.
I don't even care. Let's get to your little questions here because we were talking about the weekly review.
Right. So the weekly review is one of the core principles or methodologies within the methodology of getting things done. It is meant to be, I'm now reading my questions of things I should ask. It is something meant to be done weekly. It is a time when you go through, he's now looking for a book. I don't think it's there.
I'm looking for some of the cheat sheets to see if they're there.
Well, you should have them on your computer. You should be able to pull them up. It is meant to be, as a lot of things, there's capture, there's organize, there's do, and weekly review is part of one of the big tenets. And the idea is that you take some time once a week. You set aside time, very important, set aside time that you kind of go through your life. You kind of go through all the things that are on your plate, all of your projects, and projects in GTD are anything from mow the lawn to implement CRM. And you go through it and you basically go through to make sure everything is up to date. Is there anything that I haven't done? Is there anything that I should be doing? Is there anything that I've forgotten? Is there anything I need to follow up? And the power trip of it is you're supposed to be capturing all the stuff that comes up in your head and putting it into your system, right? So it could be a piece of software like OmniFocus, or it could be lists of, on paper. And you're reviewing it all, and you're making sure that if you have your entire set of things on your plate that is no longer in your head, so your head can do things like have great ideas, you're reviewing it once a week to make sure that everything's up to date. And it is one of those things that I think it is a core tenet. I think it's black belt, though. And I said this in the podcast, so I'm not going to try to repeat myself. But it is something that I know people are truly getting GTD when they're getting the weekly review. And that's why I think it's important to talk about it, because you could talk about the weekly review a lot because it has so many aspects to it. People struggle with it. They struggle with doing it weekly. They struggle with the theories. They struggle about how much they should or should not do. And so I think that's the stuff that we should talk about, because for someone who's GTD for 10, 11 years now, and if I've done a weekly review every week, and we're talking, let's say 52 times 10, we're talking over 500 weekly reviews. So I've done something a lot. It's not quite the 1,000 or 10,000 Chet Holmes.
You're not there.
I'm not there yet. So that's what it is. Question. I don't know. You gonna question me?
Is that what we're doing?
Well, no. I know
you
that
just said what it was.
Yes. Is there anything you want to add to that?
I think you encapsulated it pretty well. I mean, I don't want to repeat because you gave me a quote of what I said in my my previous incarnation of this podcast about setting aside some time for yourself, but you do have to make sure that you do make it something that you hold yourself accountable to doing.
Right.
Because otherwise you're letting yourself down, and you could be letting other people down because you haven't reviewed the things that you said you were going to do, and therefore you sort of lose that linchpin to the whole system, where the things that fall through the cracks, there are no cracks to fall through. Like, that's right. What the weekly review is. It's kind of that, as you're practicing GTD, you've got this kind of like a colander, right? With holes that are, so large, but then underneath it is this weekly review that has the one that's really small holes to catch all the things that fall through that colander, right? So it's quite important to make sure that you go through and take a look and say, oh, I did say that I was going to do that by this time for this person. Let me make sure I do that as to not let them down. Oh, I'm waiting on this from this person. I've been waiting for, a week and a half. They said that they were going to get it to me like a couple days ago. well, I caught that now in my weekly review. Let me just shoot an email over to somebody and say, hey, have you done that, or have you done this, or whatever?
I think that's a very good first trap of GTD Week Review that I think a lot of people struggle with. First, people struggle with when to do it. When's the time? So why don't you share when do you do yours?
I try to do them Saturdays.
Saturday morning?
In the morning,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say I've switched. I've gone all over the map. And really it's about where I can find an hour and a half. So when I worked at the company that should not be named, I had to do 2-week reviews.
Yeah, and you used to do them Fridays.
Friday morning
I
early.
know.
Yes. Well,
Trust
we'll
me,
talk
I know.
about why if everybody's doing week review, which is really some of the power of it. So I've gone from everything from Friday morning. I've done Friday afternoon. I've done Saturday and Sunday. That's really it. I've never really tried to. I mean, yes, have I done an emergency one, or like I'm on vacation, I come back like on a Monday, but it's generally for me now. I've gone all over the space. Now I've really walked into Saturday, Sunday. So I know I need about an hour and a half. I know I generally like to do it at my desk, although I can do it anywhere because most of the stuff is digital. And so I try to do it, and I don't. And
You
the
like
thing
to
is,
do it at your desk?
I like to do it at my desk at home. Yeah.
I find that I like to do it on the couch.
Okay.
No, I'm serious. On the couch, and like no TV on, but
All
music
right.
playing,
Music's good.
and away from my desk. I actually don't want to be at my desk.
Huh. That's interesting. Why?
I don't know. I feel like when I'm at my desk, I start getting into a different mode. Like I'm in desk work mode, and I kind of want to flip my modes.
Okay.
And just be like, I'm going to lay on the couch and do this for about an hour. And
Right.
that's that. And I don't want to be sitting at my desk where I'm in my 2-monitor setup, and like I don't need 2 monitors to do the weekly review.
So you do it because it allows you to focus on something, and you feel like you're distracted by your own desk.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to get out of there where I will sit and do work.
Right.
I'm not there to do work. I'm there to just review things.
And I was just about to that was where I was going with my first thing, is that most people struggle with, how do I separate out a weekly review from doing? And you can get caught in a trap of doing during your weekly review. And
very easily. Your weekly
Right.
review can go to 3 hours all of a sudden.
It could
and then
turn
it's
into a
not
day.
a weekly review.
Well, so let's talk about that, because
It's a rough, I want to say like a weird line in the sand, because as you're reviewing, you're like, oh, I have to do that. And it's like, well, now's not the time. Like, I know you need to do that. Sending off an email perfectly, like,
right.
Well,
That's where you can use the 2-minute rule.
Can totally use
So 2-minute rule and getting things done is, if it can be done in 2 minutes, it's easier to do it then. And it really should be done in 2 minutes, not like, something you think can be done in 2 minutes. But if you can be done in 2 minutes, do it, as opposed to write it down, because it takes longer to write it down and process it than it does just to do it.
But not like, if you're trying to do like for our work, project status reports, right?
Right.
You would almost think intuitively that, oh, well, that makes sense to do during a weekly review. I'm reviewing all the things from the project to do a status report.
That's incorrect. Incorrect.
Right, that's incorrect. That's counterintuitive.
Well, because what happens is it gets too much then. And I've had people who struggle with, and I won't mention their names because we never mention their names on this podcast.
Never.
I've had people who struggle with week reviews that are they're too big. And so if they don't get 3 or 4 hours to do them, then they can't do them. So then they kind of fall on this thing of like, they've done over the time, they've put so much stuff into the weekly review that the weekly review is just massive. And therefore, if it's a short day, or if they're traveling, or if there's something. So I think one of the tips is that your weekly review should be doable, in a reasonable amount of time, right? So that's not 3 hours, but should be able to be done over time too. So sometimes my favorite week reviews really are like the start on Saturday morning. I get coffee. One of my tips, I'll throw tips in here in the beginning. I like to start my weekly review with something that's just easy to do because it makes me feel good to start with the easiest thing in the world to do.
I have adopted that.
So my one, and I think you maybe put this into yours, is I start mood music.
Oh, no, that's not my first task.
My first one is to just start music because then I feel like I'm starting my weekly. I literally have just turned on iTunes or turned on the radio or whatever, and I'm doing my weekly review. And it makes me feel good.
Mine is to tweet that I'm doing my weekly
There
review.
you go.
Because now I've told the world I'm doing it. So now I have to do it.
Yes. So that's a good tip. For if you're struggling with it, don't make the first thing like analyze life goals. Well, that's what some people do. Make the first thing something simple and then build up from that. So it used to be empty wallet was the first thing. But I was like, well, even that kind of feels like, I gotta empty my wallet. So I said, let's just start something simple, like start music. And of course, it's, either if I do or do not start the music, doesn't matter. It's just a point of just making it easy. So my favorite week reviews are Saturday morning, generally when I have a lot of time. Like I don't have a task, I don't have to go to a birthday party, whatever. The wife generally goes to the gym like between 9:30 and like 11:30 on Saturday morning. So I like to get started on it. And then if I'm in this mode for about 2.5, 3 hours where I'm like reviewing, but then I get caught in a little thing of doing and then I go back to reviewing, that's great because at the end of it, even though it might take me 4 hours, I look back and I do get caught in the doing of things and I'll end up doing things. I'll do mini projects. I'll water the plants. I'll take the dog for a walk. I'll come back. That's okay because I'm getting through it. I also know how to get through it and I'm never going to get pulled off of it. I've also done them on a plane, right? I've done a week review on. I think you did one the other week, didn't you? On the way back.
On the way back from Milwaukee, yeah.
Right, and you have to cut down what you do. Obviously, if you're on a plane, sometimes you don't have internet. Sometimes you don't have some of the other things you should be doing in your week review. Like some of mine are to empty my inbox, my physical inbox, where I throw things during the week to kind of say, I'll deal with this in my week review. So it's. You can cut it down, but sometimes that's great too because you're so focused on what's in front of you, right? You don't have the TV and the cat and your wife coming out and whatever. She's going to spin class and you're like, oh, sorry, I'm whatever. I don't know. I'm just making these things up. So I think it's an important thing to make sure that it is something that is both small enough to get done, I would say, within an hour, 2 hours. Really, you should be able to do it an hour. If you're good, you should be able to do it an hour. Doesn't mean that, and that's, I guess, the second tip is week reviews don't have to be the same. You can have a good one, you can have a quick one, you can have a long one, you can have one that is, I just need to get through it. It doesn't have to be every week you go through the exact same thing. You just have to make sure as you do it that you at least conquer the massive stuff.
And that's what I was trying to get to about like the colander and then the sifter, right? Like don't let things slip through two cracks.
Right.
Like, to me, it's kind of like the backup.
And the thing about the week review that's nice is the backup to the week review is
the next weekly review.
Next week review. Well, it's true. Have you not found something that you didn't find the week before, and you're like,
could have caught that.
You might go back 2 weeks in your calendar, and you might go, ooh, right, oh crud, I found something else. By the way, we're not going to just sell all the things you do in your week review because that's documented to a bit fairly well. We're just really going to talk about tricks and tips and things that we find. All right. Mm-hmm. So we talked about when you did it. You say you do it on Saturday.
Try to do it Saturdays. I mean, always weekend. I can't do it during the week.
Tell your Jason story, but how you know I'm doing my week review.
Oh, so
you could tweet Jason's doing his week review right now.
I could.
And how do you know?
Because I get a bunch of emails. The best is when I don't. That's how I know that I've been doing my stuff really well, is when I don't hear from you so much on like a Saturday or Sunday morning. But back when we worked at the
company that
won't
be named
in a city that won't be named. Interesting. Right. I knew that you were doing your weekly review on Friday morning because I would get into work on Friday morning at like 8:30 in the morning, and I'd have about 7 or 8 emails from you already that morning, and I'd be like, "Oh, he must be doing that review thing again," like, oh, that thing he keeps telling me about that now he's doing it and he's just crushing me. Like, where's this? Where's this? Where are you with that? Can you follow up with this person? Why haven't they gotten back to you? Da 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 da. I'm like, oh man, this is painful. So it definitely keeps you on top of your toes when you know, as a culture within the company,
Right.
as Arkus, if you have the understanding that everyone is going to be doing this, and at various levels, not
Right.
everyone's going to be, black belt ninja level, but everyone's going to be, having a context for waiting for, and they're going to look at that every week and be like, oh, I'm waiting for this from this person. Might not even have a due date. I'm just waiting. Maybe I'll ping them now.
Right.
That kind of thing. And I find, for me personally, I know that I'm keeping up with my stuff when I don't have an onslaught of questions from you and the partner that shall remain nameless waiting for me by like Saturday afternoon.
Right.
It's like, oh man, there's a bunch of emails that I now need to answer. I know if I catch those things well in advance that you guys will just see it and move on, right?
Well, that's. I mean, now we can talk about organizationally how, and again, it's not that we've mastered this as an organization, but it is something we sort of put in as part of our culture. Because if you could live in a world like in any kind of world that everybody did this system, this productivity, and did the week review, man, things would go easier because everybody's on top of their stuff. Like the waiting fors would be almost non-existent. I wouldn't almost have to. In fact, with the best people, so sorry you get pinged, but where the people who I trust the most, I don't write down their waiting fors. I only use waiting fors for people that I am basically I don't trust that they're going to do it. And so I need to write down something to make sure that I remember that they told me they're going to do something so I can get back to them basically when and if they don't do it. So, that's my way of kind of keeping my stuff. My end of the bargain is that I'm also not going to let someone else not do something. You're going to have to do it. And it's annoying. And you teach a class here at Arkus.
I do teach a class at Arkus.
You do, called Managing Your Manager.
That's part of the onboarding.
Which is part of onboarding. And it is about the expectation of your manager. Now, it just happens that it's a class about me, but it could, and hopefully could be extended to other people. If you're that type of manager that you are capturing, things are going on, I could teach it about you and say, hey, listen, Justin is going to be on it. If you say you're going to say something in an email that you're going to do, it's not going to slip through the cracks. Don't think that he's not going to remember it. Our systems and the way we do productivity here at Arkus is to not let that stuff. I don't want to do that. So I want everybody to be on top of their stuff. I want to be able to mention something once, and if I, here's the tip I'll tell that I can sense that people are getting to GTD. It's the, hey, Roger, we'll use his name. Hey, Roger, could you do X for me? And then, email, text, whatever, Slack, whatever the method, chatter, whatever the method, I give it to him. And then I get back sure, when do you need this by? And then I know that he's tracking, right? That means he's tracking that because he knows that I'm tracking it, right? And if you both know, it just makes things so much smoother. And some of the things don't slip through. They still slip through, but the slippage is much, much less.
And to bring it back, the slippage is much, much less because you're reviewing the things that you've committed to on a weekly basis.
Right. I don't want
to... It's the trusted place, right?
Right.
You throw a bunch of stuff in a bucket and you say, all right, I got it because I'm going to make sure I look at it once a week.
Right.
Dumb it down to its simplest point.
The simplest point I could say is you're reviewing your life. But that seems so sort of terribly huge and big, and it doesn't have to feel like that every week. Sometimes you do get into big things you're thinking about. But the idea is you're looking at all of your commitments to everything. This is family commitments, friend commitments, travel commitments, finance commitments, job commitments, spousal commitments, all of these things, what we call projects. And you're reviewing them and you're saying, hey, I got a trip. I'm going to London in October. What's my next action on that? Do I need to do anything? Am I waiting for something? Oh, yeah, I said I was going to buy the tickets. Let me get that. Let me either schedule to do it or 2 minutes. Let me pound it out right now. Or let me shoot an email over to someone else and say, hey, when are you buying your tickets? It allows you just to keep all the things that are in your life in control. So we talk about the weekliness of it. I would say, could you do it more? I mean, it's the week review.
The weekliness of it.
The weekliness of it, how often? It's obvious you do it weekly.
Could you do it more? I think you could do a 5-minute review every day.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's your project list. I would say probably twice or 3 times a week I take a look at my overall projects. Very infrequently, actually, because I used to do it more, but my tool allows me just to...
The tool that we use, OmniFocus, which we've mentioned many times on this podcast, has grown and allowed you to see things in a much better way.
Right. Just the stuff you need to do. Because the bigger other concept is your week review is this time to think about what you need to do. The rest of the week is when you do. And so if you think about that, like, here's where I'm planning out my attack, right? I'm a general in an army. I'm planning out the attack on
army
on my weekly review.
I'm planning out my strategy to win a football game.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Same thing. We'll go. Fine. Same thing. So Todd Bowles spends all week planning out his way to beat the other team, the Cleveland Browns, on the opener. And then
the sports ball team.
But it's kind of reversed because he spends all week getting ready for a 3-hour event. We spend 3 hours getting ready for the whole week.
Yeah.
It's the reverse. That's why I say more army, because like a war would last for a long time. But anyway, so the idea is you spend this time planning, and then because there is 2 modalities in your brain, there is a planning and thinking, and then there's a doing. And you do, and I'm actually reading an interesting book about that. I haven't finished it yet, so I won't make it a pick yet. But it's proven, it's science. And that if you spend your time planning something out, then when you get to the doing, it just makes the doing easier. So that's also why I think week reviews should be done in either at the end or beginning of the week. So if someone said to me, I do a week review on Wednesday, I'd be like, yeah, that seems odd unless you're the guy who takes Wednesday off every week and like your week start. Because it should either be at the end or the end or start. It doesn't matter because it's kind of the same, because it's kind of setting you up basically to review everything that's happened previously and then to look forward into what's happening in the future. So anyway, so I have another thing here, struggles. So as someone who's struggled,
I have.
What have you found is the way? Wagon. What do you think is the lessons you've learned from struggling? Like, what's the thing you struggle with, and how do you get around it, or what's your sort of?
You know what?
How are you going to help everybody who's struggling?
Yeah, you know what I struggle with is that sometimes a weekly review could start to feel like a chore.
Yeah.
So in your mind, you have to mentally start to think about it as not something that is like monotonous, and because it's a weekly review, it's something you do every week. So try to change it up, maybe try and do it from a different location. Another thing to do is think about some of the things in your life that you've let slip over the last month, and just reflect on those for 15 minutes or whatever, and just think about maybe the people that it's affected, or the amount of time wasted because you did let something slip. And then think to yourself, if I just did the thing that I said I was going to do all along, would that have happened? And the answer is, in most times, the answer would be no. If I did my weekly review and I went over everything, the thing that I slipped on that impacted someone else's life, or your life at home, your home life balance, and at work, like things can start to go sideways. And then you think to yourself, oh, maybe that's because I wasn't doing this thing that I said I was going to be doing. And if you just, don't break that promise with yourself and go back to it and see how good it makes you feel when you're done with it. And that's kind of the key. Is
so I want to go dig into that.
Feel really good when I'm
talk
done.
About that. Like, really talk about that.
So it makes you feel really good from so many different perspectives.
I want to hear at least 3.
Okay, well, the first perspective is the commitment that you've made to yourself to do something, and you've done it, and you get to check the box, and you get to say, I did this, right? It's just to bring it to Salesforce for 2 seconds. If you're like a product manager, you get to check the box that says, I delivered that idea that had a lot of points on it, right? To even go back to our blog post.
Okay.
You get to check the box and say, I did that that makes me feel good. Doing things that I say I'm going to do makes me feel good. Secondly, it makes you feel really accomplished. Like, oh, I didn't really do anything in that hour, but my life is in order right now. And that makes me feel comfortable. That makes me feel like I can just go outside for a walk for 2 hours and not give a care about anything. Because I just put everything back into place. The week is chaotic. We have chaotic lives that we live. In our line of work, right, as a consulting firm, we've got lots of responsibilities with lots of clients and to ourselves and employees and just lots of stuff flying around. Putting it all back together in a 1 hour, 1.5 hour time frame is really not that bad. So once you get that that load off of the weight off your shoulders, taking the thinking part out of it from your head and saying, you know what, I just took everything and put it where it needed to be, and I trust it, and it'll be there when I need it, is very empowering, and it feels really good, and it's a good stress reliever. Because that's what happens. Like, if you've ever found that, like, you're working on a big project and it has a deadline, and you're like, you're creeping up on that deadline. Some people, like, you have trouble sleeping, or you have trouble, like, even eating properly. You don't even think about it. You stop working out. You break your habits throughout the course of the day or throughout the course of the week because you're just so fixated on this thing that you need to do and is coming up.
Because it is what? What is the thing that's coming up? Because I want you to get to the word. I can give it to you, but
I don't know exactly what word you're looking for. Control.
You feel that project is out of control.
It's out of control.
Right.
The weekly review helps you. I think I was saying that without saying
you were
the
saying
word.
it. You just were using the word.
It allows you to really put everything back into perspective, back where it needs to be, review it, know that you reviewed it, and have yourself back under control so that you can live, the stress-free, productive lifestyle that you want to live, right?
Now you're doing taglines.
That's the tagline.
Nice.
Well, that is the tagline.
I think also if you're thinking about all those things, so let's go back to that project that's doing a deadline that you're missing sleep on. The reason you're missing sleep, the reason that you're stressed or whatever that word is, it's one of my least favorite words, overused. The reason you're losing sleep or breaking habits is because the project is out of control, because you don't have a good sense of how to get from where you are now to that goal. So what the best way for anything, if you just that project and went and said, okay, how do I feel back in control? I can either keep doing or I can stop, take a look at the project, make a list of all the tasks that need to be done, figure out who I need to get involved, plan out the time, right? That's why, there is a project planning aspect to all projects. And if you think about everything in your life as a project, then it becomes, I want to go on a big cruise next year, right? It's a year away from here. Oh, wow, I don't have the money, I don't have the whatever. But if you start to say, well, what's the next thing I can do to go on that cruise? You think, well, I don't know. Let's talk to my significant other if it's something they want to go on, or let's look at my bank account. Let's research some cruises to find out what some prices are. Immediately, you feel better about going on that cruise because I have some actions I can take that will help. And the week review, the big thing is to make sure that all of your projects, all the things in your life, have some sort of next action. This is huge in GTD.
Yep.
The next action is the thing that is the next thing to do. And it's also the thing I think people struggle with GTD a little bit is they try to get too next action-y. They'll take a project that is something and they'll say, oh, I got to write out the 15,000 tasks that need to happen. But really, and you actually said this in the other podcast from 2 years ago, if you can just go through and get one next action on each one of your projects, you feel in control because you've identified what the thing is to do next, and you feel like I'm in control of that one thing.
Yeah, it's not meant to be Microsoft Project.
No.
There's no Gantt chart here.
No.
There is a next action, and there are oftentimes due dates associated with that
Sometimes,
next
yeah.
action. Oftentimes, but not always.
Right.
It's just the next thing I need to do to move this thing from here to there.
Right.
And when I get to there, I'll figure out what the next thing is that I can move from there to the next there.
Right.
Right.
It's almost agile in nature.
Almost. So, we have the 2-minute rule, right? What is the next action? Oh, it's send an email to this person. It's a 3-line email. All right, do it. Right? You have a minute, do it. Otherwise, jot it down and say when you're going to do it or don't. And if you don't, you'll get to it in your weekly review.
Right.
And you'll know, oh, that's a 1-minute thing. Maybe I might do it during my weekly review.
Right.
Even though it's not for doing, it's going to take me a second. I may throw that email out there. And it's Saturday. Great. If I hear back from them, wonderful. Otherwise, it'll be waiting there on Monday morning.
Just a thought, too, and I think the reason I would say that you should pick a time, that's why I used to do it Friday mornings. I used to get to work pretty early, like 7.
Yeah, you did.
The reason is because you
dominating
don't want your week review to be done in the middle of a time that there's a lot of onslaught, because then you're kind of in the catching up, going, reviewing mode, and you get too much in the... Right, because email and new things coming into your life, new things to be done, can distract you from the looking at and reviewing.
Part of your weekly review should be to go through your email.
Right.
So if you've got, a task in your weekly review to get your inbox to 0,
right,
and all of a sudden you got 13 new emails since the last time you looked at it.
Right.
Oh, how am I getting my inbox to 0?
Right.
I just got 13 new emails.
Right.
Oh man. Gotta go through those. You go through them all, and then there's 4 more. It's
right.
like, oh man, now I'm in a cycle. This is vicious.
And I will find that, I have a system for tagging and flagging. I think you use it too, or we all use it here, of how to get through and deal with email. That's another blog post, or maybe another podcast someday. But one of my things is to empty out all the, it's a big thing of GTD, but like I have a flagged folder where I flag things that I'm going to do within, usually within 12 or 24 hours, sometimes immediately. But even in my week review, one of my things is I can't leave things in that flagged folder. So they either turn into an actual task in OmniFocus or I deal with them. So it's kind of a nice kind of like, it makes sure that nothing can go by that point. So if it's something I'm struggling with, or as we were talking about today, the thing that is closest, and this is a David Allen quote, the thing is closest to your heart and the most meaningful to you is the thing you will procrastinate on the most, right? Go to get some milk is not the thing you'll procrastinate on. Deal with, your retirement fund because it doesn't exist, and you're getting old and you're not going to be able to retire.
74 years old
is the thing that you will struggle. Is the thing that you'll procrastinate. So people always procrastinate on the things that are the toughest things to do. But by putting them in front of you weekly and at least going, so I'll give a personal example. I had a struggle with a family member, and for the longest time, it wasn't in my OmniFocus. So here's the thing that's like an issue with a family member, and it was a big one, and you know what I'm talking about, but I'm trying to keep it a little generic here. I, at one point, just put the project in OmniFocus as resolve issue with family member, right? And it made it real. Like all of a sudden this was real, and look, and you know what I had to do? Every week I had to say, am I doing anything on this? Am I trying to resolve? What's my next action for this? There was another example on that very good David Allen disc series on the week review, 3 or 4 discs. You actually really enjoyed it.
I did.
Where she said, she was out.
There were a couple of coaches.
They're coaches with David Allen, and she went out and she fell down and she like broke her leg. And she came back in, she called the doctor, whatever. But the minute she got back to her, her thing, she put in her projects was like to, recover from leg surgery, because it was something she wanted to make sure she did. She wanted to have an effort towards. So, I put things in my OmniFocus or my GTD system that are sometimes silly, but sometimes are just like, I need something as a placeholder that is going to kick me in the butt about and make sure that I'm, getting to it every single week. All right. So we talked about struggles, talked about how often, we talked about quick versus extensive. I definitely think it should be a roller coaster. I think you should do, an hour one, a half hour one, a 2-hour one, an hour one. Like if you're always doing week reviews and they're always an hour, then you're not going deep enough sometimes. If you're doing week reviews and they're always 4 hours, you're going too much. They should be able to go up and down, and you will have ones that are huge, and they'll be and you'll come out of them like, whoa, I just went into like a 2-hour, I got in, I found all sorts of new stuff. I picked up stuff that I had even ignored, kind of became, cruft in my life. Or you can have ones of like, listen, I'm busy, but if I just get through this week review, if I just do the main things, skip over some stuff, because again, you're going to get to it next week. It's okay. But you want to make sure that the main fires are not going on, and you go through it and make sure those. So next I have is best practices. Do you want to share some? Do you want me to share some?
I think we already shared a really good one, which is all the weekly review is a project that has a list of tasks, right? Just to boil it down to that level.
So that's a good tip. I don't think a lot of people do that.
Okay, so there's a good practice.
Make your weekly review a
project and make it recurring, that it disappears when you're done with it for that week and reappears on the day that you want to actually do it, or maybe the day before if you want to get a little head start on it. And have a list of tasks that you can check off of things that you are actually going to review, and have that first task be something really, really dumb simple. Something that takes less than 5 seconds and that you're more than willing to do. Like you said, turn on some music. For me, it's shoot a quick tweet out there.
Right.
Very simple things to do that take no time, no thinking, no effort, but it just gets you right in, right? So it's like, okay, check the first task is done.
Right.
Now I can go and start doing some more things. And some of them, throw some things in there that are easy.
Yes.
That are not like, review that. Oh my goodness, review that. Like throw some things really simple things like, clean up your desktop.
Right.
Make sure your desktop doesn't look like a complete disaster area. I mean, where were we? We were somewhere the other day. I don't remember where we were.
I don't want to mention it.
I feel like we were in like a restaurant or something.
Oh, we were in a hotel.
A hotel
not a
lobby
hotel.
or something.
No, it was the airport.
An airport. We were in an airport.
At the Miller Brew House.
At the Miller Brew House.
With Susan, our waitress.
Yeah, hello, Susan. Where we had the worst edamame ever. Who orders edamame at the airport in Milwaukee? That was your mistake.
Yes,
all right, anyway, sorry, sidetrack. But over our shoulder was this gentleman who was traveling, and he had like one of those mega laptops, like a 19-inch laptop thing, or I guess a 17-inch. I'm just so used to this 15 and it looking large.
Right.
And his desktop was up, and it was just like every pixel on the desktop was a file. Like it was like, how can you possibly do anything?
Right.
If your entire desktop is basically every file on your entire file system.
Right.
So like every week you go through, it's like, oh, some stuff gets piled up on your desktop, put it where it belongs or trash it. And then empty the recycle bin.
Right.
Like really simple task that you should just do every once in a while. Why not do them every week? Just really easy things so that when you do get to something that's a little more like thought-provoking, or, where you really have to go look for something, or, hunt down a few things, see if something happened, mix in the easy stuff so that you get to check the boxes faster. And it's like, oh, I accomplished that, done, accomplished that, done. Oh, okay, something that's going to take a few minutes. All right, let me dig into that. Cool, done, move on to the next thing. I think changing modes is also a good one.
Yeah.
Like I said, I like to do mine on the couch. I've done them. You saw me doing an airplane. I've done them out at coffee shops before.
Sometimes that's fun.
Just because I'm a little different than you. I don't really have much of a physical inbox. I do have one, and this week it just so happens that I do have to scan a bunch of things because I was traveling, but I won't really do that as part of my weekly review. I just have it as a task. I need to scan this stuff. So I don't need to be in any one specific place for my weekly review to happen. So I'd say
just
switch that up.
But my physical inbox is, again, I use my physical inbox, and again, big thing of inbox. I put my physical inbox, it's by my desk, and I do throughout the week use it, probably not even officially, GTD, whatever. I put things in there just as, hey, I'm busy during this week. This is this thing that came in. I don't need to deal with this. I know as part of my week review, again, as part of the thing underneath the calendar, that I'm going to get to it. It doesn't need immediate attention. It's going in the physical inbox. So yes, one of my tasks is to go through my physical inbox and to make sure that it is empty. I thought what I would do is just quickly, I'm going to read through my week review because I think it just has a lot of stuff in it that might be interesting, and I'll just say a little bit about each one. I also have a blog post for a long time about this, so you can go look at that if you type in week review. So I start music. I check my current project count, and this one we talked about a lot. So Again, this is an OmniFocus thing, but basically it says what's on my plate, and I get to look at all the projects that I'm currently looking at, not things that are on hold, not things that are going to pop up, not Valentine's in January. These are things that I'm currently dealing, and what this allows me to do is to get a number that I can then measure that number to say, you got too much on my plate or not? And it allows me to do the rest of the week review, think, should I be moving things off my plate, putting things on hold or not? I do that. Then I go through all the things that are sort of what you call your inboxes on your life. And so I have many, because we live in a digital world. I check my work voicemail. I check my home voicemail. I empty my wallet, right? Because I stuffed in there. I check my mobile inboxes. So I keep these file folders, these plastic file folders that are great. You can buy the GTD you can buy the ones from David Allen. You can also just buy regular old plastic ones. They're colored. And I leave 2 of them in my bag because when you get something, you just throw them in there, and then I know I'll review it during the week. I get my desk inbox, that's my physical inbox, to 0. I go through my OmniFocus inbox. It never has stuff in there, but if it does, I just want to make sure it's 0. I go through mail, 0. Flagged email, to 0. And then this is actually a good tip. I don't know if every email client can do this. I have a smart folder that I called non-responded emails. And what it is a smart folder of every email that I haven't responded to in the last 10 days. So it's a little bit of an overlap between week reviews. And this is a great catch because if I go through it, and I go through it every week, there's just something that might have slipped by. You get hundreds and hundreds of emails. You read it on 17 different devices.
There must be hundreds and hundreds of emails in that smart folder.
It is. Well, it's a rolling smart folder because last 10 days.
There must be just 100.
And I just scan through it. Maybe take 5 minutes and start from the oldest to the newest. I limit it by 10 days, and I just go through and make sure. Now, I filtered out like Amazon. I put a lot of filters, so it's just really people. You could actually do it. I think you could do it like just in your address book. You could do some interesting things you want to, just VIPs, and you could mark VIPs.
Right.
Anyway, it's a great catch-all and has saved my tuchus more times than not because I'll hit something and be like, "Ooh, I didn't respond to it." So half the emails you'll get are, "Great, thanks. Or it'll be something a follow-up like, "Oh, did we ever solve this?" Because it'll be something that I caught during the week. So here's a couple of Salesforce ones. I review @me on Chatter. And I started doing a new thing the other day, which is because Chatter doesn't let you see how long you've not seen your chatter for, I look at the @me chatter and I bookmark the most recent one. So whatever the most recent one this week, and then when I go back next week, I look for that bookmark to say that's the one that I can stop at. So it basically gives me the timeline of I only need to review this much. And it's great. It's actually helped me a lot. It's because, again, Chatter is an inbox. People are flying. Now, they could come as emails, but sometimes you get a lot of emails, and sometimes they don't necessarily, and sometimes someone mentions you, so I just review the @me. I check then my Chatter bookmarks. Is there anything I bookmarked throughout the week I didn't want to go? And this is one of those ones I probably shouldn't do weekly, but I do because it's just something that's sort of in a habit, but I check open cases. So we run cases. I check our open cases to see if there's anything that needs to be moved along. Does anybody need pinging on something? That could be its own thing. It doesn't need to be weekly, but I do it weekly. I review my Salesforce goals in work.com. So there you go. Right. So I will throw things into my week review that I need to focus on. Right. Because I know if it's in my week review, I'll focus on it. So like this is brand new. I put this in 2 weeks ago because I want to make sure that I catch it. It's someplace that I might have some commitments. It's basically a set of commitments. I want to review those commitments and make sure that I'm moving them forward. Then there's some stuff about Google Drive. I check starred docs. So these are all the ones I'm working on. I might find some I don't need anymore. I'll unstar them. I check recent on Google Docs, Google Drive. So like recent items and recent things. I catch things all the time. Like, ooh, that document that I started, or ooh, someone updated that. I also check our marketing calendar. So this is a separate calendar. It's kind of its own thing. But I just want to make sure, is there something in there that I committed to that I need to make some action on? I review Evernote, where I keep my checklists. So I have a bunch of checklists and things in Evernote. I just review it just to make sure there's nothing in there that I do. I review my goals, which I keep in Evernote, sort of my personal goals. This is a big one. I check Safari and this place called Read It Later bookmarks. Throughout the week, I'm reading Zeit. I'm doing this. I'm always putting things into Read It Later, things I want to buy, things I want to do, and I forget about them. And of course, so once a week I go back. It's another inbox. I check it. I don't buy things. I buy things. Generally, I don't buy them. It's good, though. If you actually say, like, you're going to buy something, if you just leave it for a couple days from now, 9 times out of 10, I'm like, why? What? Why was I going to buy that? don't want to buy that, but I would have bought it immediately.
You would have.
Clear computer desktop, so that's my desktop. And then I go through my inbox, my physical inbox, or my non-physical inbox, outbox, downloads, mail downloads, basically a bunch of folders on my desktop that I want to make sure what's in there should be in there. That's when I review the past calendar. Then I review the past calendar. I go back 2 weeks. So I go from this week and I go back 2, 1, 2. So actually I think I go back 3 because I'm on this week. It's great. You just look over things. I scan them. Then I go up, forward. And I don't have a weeks forward. I just kind of go as far as I'm going to go. So until I feel like, well, that's enough. Might be 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, depending. I always find things when I go forward. You always find something. You're like, ooh, that thing's coming up. Or you forgot to put it on your calendar, which is the best. You catch yourself and you say, ooh, or next week I have that dinner with Frank, but Frank always cancels. Let me shoot them an email. Hey, Frank, are we on for dinner? Right? Oh, no, I'm not. I'm off to Uruguay. Whatever. 2 really good examples, right? Then I do like more very traditional GTD things. I check my on projects for hold. I review my waiting for list. That's where you get pings. I look at my project. So then I go back. I look at the projects, like where is this gone up or down, like I numbered. I then review stalled projects. This is a OmniFocus thing, but it tells you any project that doesn't have a next action in it. Very important because it's kind of the thing you're supposed to be doing. I then go through a bunch of views in Arkus to look at, in OmniFocus to look at different sets of projects. I look at my Arkus projects, my home projects. So anything in there I need to do anything with. Then I have a couple other special ones. I review recent additions. These are things I've added to OmniFocus recently. I look at upcoming projects. And then one of my things is I want to get my project load under 40, so I look at it. I'm almost always under 40. I look at that. And then I have a couple at the end. These are the easy ones, too. These are ones that, like I have one, read the GTD trigger list. So that there's a list of triggers that you can read. Sometimes read it, sometimes don't. Like, it's not, I don't do that every week. And then I go over there's a thing called areas of focus, and I have that in Evernote. And that's like your family, your, whatever. And I read that over. It's anything that just triggers my mind. And then I'm done. That's my entire list. And it changes. Again, I remove things. I add things. The core things are there. And I know what is core. And I can just do those. I don't have to always say, oh, I need to do every single one of these. I know if I sometimes only go 3 weeks in advance or sometimes skip one, I know I'll come back to it. It's not gonna affect my life because I know I do it the next week. So that's a lot. We just put a lot of content in this puppy.
Thanks.
Well, it's kind of funny because you and I had just done this personally about 2 weeks ago, so it's a little bit less interesting for you. Sorry.
They have a couple different ones.
So what's the ones that you're like, anything different? Any ones that are fascinating?
Well, let's see. Something a little different. I have a couple of different places I need to go to look at stuff.
Okay.
Based on just different communication methods. So
like
Slack has the concept of starring individual messages.
Okay.
So going and looking at a message that I may have starred to come back to, as opposed to starring just the whole conversation. You can just that one line, like, hey, can you do this for me?
Like an email.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks for throwing that there. But not a big deal. Assembla for development sprints and stuff. Just taking a look, making sure everything's where I think it should be.
Right.
Reorganizing at some points, sometimes reassigning or reprioritizing, if you will. I also, since we're work.com users here at Arkus, this is a way of holding myself accountable for doing weekly reviews. I actually have a work.com goal that is do a weekly review every week. And that's my last task in my weekly review is to go into Salesforce. So, context Salesforce, and going to my GTD goal and going to my weekly review metric and adding one and hitting save.
Right.
That way I feel good. It's in there. Everyone can see it. Well, not everyone.
Filled history tracking's on, so we can see that you updated it.
I don't know about that, but maybe it is. There you go. Good. Thank you. And so that's the last thing on the list. So I like doing that last because it's like not only as soon as I do that, then I check that little circle next to it, and then the whole thing just disappears. It's like, oh, I did it.
Feels so good.
Feels good.
I would say some couple things.
Feels good.
Some couple things to think about, and we both have these things in our week review, and I know there's another person at our company that has a lot of these things in our week review. So it's not death to do it, but it's something you should always be aware of and thinking of, and is this something that is actually part of my week review, or is this something that is I'm just put in my week review because I didn't know where else or what other frequency to do it. So I find people will struggle. They'll put a bunch of stuff in the week review that are actually just their own thing. So for me, it's check cases. Cases aren't an inbox for me. They're not. I'm not the person who answers cases. I just did it because I wanted to make sure that I went in. It's probably something I should move out and say, this is another project. It has its own recurring. Maybe it's once every 3 days. Maybe once every month. Maybe it's once every 3 weeks. Maybe it's once a week, but it's not really part of my week review, right? So there are things in there. Just make sure that you're not making week review your excuse to do things or your reminder to do things. That's separate. Keep that separate. So yours is the Assembla thing, because Assembla isn't really an inbox for you necessarily. If you're going to, it's something you do every day anyway. I mean, you're in Assembla every single day of your life.
Every day.
It's your way of just saying, is there anything that I haven't captured out of Assembla? But and again, I've talked to some other people and I've helped him do it. Just he had put a lot of stuff in his week review that was like, it was just doing, and it was a lot of project-based stuff. And it's like, you could separate that. Why does that have to be weekly? Make that every 10 days. Make that every 2 weeks. Make it a separate thing, because what happens is your week review becomes such a huge set of tasks that, again, you need 3-4 hours to do it, and then you never get to the important things. So just make sure that it really is about, reviewing and clearing inboxes and thinking. The other thing I don't think that we do very well that David Allen talks about is, to have really big thoughts in life. It's very hard to sit there and go, oh, big thoughts in life. But what you're supposed to be doing at the end of the week review is having kind of a sense of clarity and kind of going, is there anything else that I need? I've cleared out all this stuff. My brain is, mine like water. Is there anything else I need to put into this now? Anything else I need to kind of get there? And in the great week reviews, you'll get them. All those things pop in your head like, oh, I want to go to New Guinea, right? You're like, go to New Guinea someday maybe. Or you're like, something that you just totally didn't put in there. Absolutely imperative. Anyway, I could not live without it at this point. I think the great thing that David Allen talks about, and again, he's talking about recently, so this is why it's kind of in my head. He says, if you get to a certain point, and I'm definitely at this point, it's like brushing your teeth. So everybody has a level of scuzz in their teeth. Meaning some people after eating a really corn feel like, oh, I got to go brush my teeth immediately. Some people after a day or 2 days of not brushing your teeth, you have this feeling like you kind of can, just feels like there's crap on your teeth. And you just feel like, ooh, it's scuzzy. Or taking a shower.
Not this guy.
Okay, well, that's why we sit across from each other. Or taking a shower. Some people are like two times a day. Some people are not. Week review should feel like that. That's how you know you're at the next level, is when you feel that kind of like, I need a week review. My wife can tell she can tell whether I'll come out and be in a really good mood. She's like, oh, did you have a good week review? Because she knows it puts me in such a good feeling, and it makes me feel so good that she can just nail it like that. She'll be like, oh, you did a great week review. I know when you don't do your week reviews. I know when other employees of ours don't. I can tell, because I can tell that they're not on top of their stuff and they're getting stressed because they haven't sort of met it head on. So anyway, I hope this helped. I hope this is a good one. I hope this goes into our list of great things. Again, we talk about GTD once in a while. This sort of came up recently because we were talking about it. Maybe I think an email one would be neat. We could do like an email best practice maybe in a month or two. An evergreen one. Next time, nothing. I have nothing on her for next time. Anything you want to discuss next time?
No.
All right, let's get to our picks. Jeez, we're gonna do picks. All right, let's do picks.
All right, we're doing picks.
Do picks.
We're doing picks, but my computer just froze a little bit.
Want me to do a pick for you since I know what it is?
Well, I know what it is, but I was gonna go to their website, and the computer just kind of froze.
Oh. Is it unfrozen?
Not yet. Picking Workato.
Workato?
Workato. Workato. Workato.
Workato?
Correct. So
What's
Workato is It's free. Freemium.
Freemium.
Because you can pay for it. It's a tool that connects applications. So a lot like Zapier. I think my computer's just rebooting right now on its own.
Nice.
This is the second time it's happened this week, by the way.
Thankfully, it's not my computer. Otherwise, this podcast would be lost in the histories of podcasts.
That would be terrible. This thing just totally just died, didn't it?
Keep going. You can
right.
talk about
That's pretty terrible. Thanks, MacBook Pro. So, Workado's, what's it called? Zapier, I think, is another one of these kinds of tools. But Workado's like this, I've been thinking of it and have just implemented it to connect Salesforce and QuickBooks Online.
Okay.
So a lot of people have the use for connecting these two tools. They're sort of front office, back office, right? Where you want to, what are you doing? Just walking around? Oh, you have to get up because it's 10 to 2 and take a couple steps because your watch told you?
Apple Watch.
Your Apple Watch told you to stand up. You are a slave to the watch. So anyway, Workado. I was able to log in using my Salesforce credential. That connected me to Salesforce, so I had my Salesforce connection. I was able to create an Intuit QuickBooks Online connection, and then I was able to pretty easily write an integration that connected our QuickBooks Online and Salesforce. I did a very simple use case, very simple to start, where we track all of our invoices, obviously in QuickBooks, but also we track our invoices in Salesforce for ease of reporting across things and just ease of workflow and following up and knowing where we are in terms of payments. So I wrote a simple integration that when an invoice is marked as received or paid in QuickBooks, it fills in the date paid field inside of Salesforce on that invoice. Really simple. But it was really simple to build. It was like less than an hour to build it. You and I get an email when it happens, so we know it happened. And it just sort of works. It's pretty incredible. For a free tool, all you're doing is building what they call recipes. And they have, I'm going to say about 50 some odd connections. So Salesforce and QuickBooks are kind of two of the bigger ones, but they have an email, an SMS, Google Drive, and a whole, if I had my computer, I would tell you all of the connections that they had available.
Please don't. There's like 500.
There's a lot. I don't think it's 500. It's closer to 50. But lots of different places to connect up to. And
like email is a connection.
Email is a connection.
Right.
I just said that.
Yeah, okay.
If you were listening.
I was listening.
just said that.
I was trying to get your computer reboot.
So, yeah, Workado, take a look if you're trying to integrate Salesforce with some other web app, and in particular QuickBooks Online, because it's got a really good connector on both sides. And building it out is very much like a business analyst type of task. It's not really an IT shop tool necessarily, and I would recommend you take a look. There's also tons of, that's the free model. So if you're free, whatever recipe you build is available for other people to use.
Right.
Not that they can see anything about your like credentials or login or anything like that, but the actual like, I guess the metadata behind the integration that you've built is available for anyone to leverage. So if you have a very similar use case to someone else, you can use what they've already built and modify it, save a copy and then modify it for your own needs.
Yeah, Dropbox,
Try and figure
Zoho,
out this computer situation.
SMS, Google Sheets. So in that same example, if you wanted to, so you're using 3, but you could have had it, so it comes from QuickBooks, it pays it off in Salesforce, there's your computer, it emails. You could also have it write to a Google Sheet that it was done. You could have it, send an SMS to you. So, I mean, it's a nice little, it reminds me a little bit of If This Then That, but more.
It's very much If This Then That.
But more business If This Then That. And then I think If This Then That is a little bit
I think that's
singular.
just called If now.
Is it? Well, it's
think
if
they
this,
rebranded
but
it.
I don't think it does like if this, then that, then that, then that. It only
This
does.
has a lot of conditional steps. You can
Right.
do stop conditions. So
it's been neat. Yeah, I mean, you set it up a while ago. It's something we were doing it in 2 places. Now we're doing it in 1 place. It seems good. I think we'll continue to build on it and build more.
It was the POC.
Yes, it was the proof of concept.
The MVP.
It was the MVP. Nice. All right, I'm going to do a double pick because it's a podcast, and each podcast is only worth half a pick. It's not software. So I'm going to make a quick one first. I'll make one my semi-pick and one my full pick. So 2 podcasts, both GTD for the topic we're on. So David Allen actually has restarted his David Allen, his own podcast, which is hosted by somebody now. So it looks a little bit more official. They've had 6 episodes. It seems to be a mix of sort of old stuff and interviews. It's okay, so that's why I'm making it, maybe it's my half a pick, is because it's a little bit pushy towards getting into GTD Connect, which is their $49 a month, like GTD community. And even I, who am pretty insane about GTD, feel like that's a little bit on the high side. But it's good. They have some good quality and some good interviews. Some of the interview people, some of the people they've interviewed have been really interesting. And David Allen does a mind sweep one where you can listen to him go through a mind sweep. Kind of fun. The one I really like to pick though is the GTD Virtual Study Group. This is I think it's monthly, basically conference call, and they record it, and it's hosted by Michelle. Don't know her last name, and she basically hosts a bunch of people that have a topic of the month. They then record it and they turn it into a podcast. But you can call into it, and I want to call into it soon because I'd like to kind of be a little bit more interactive. And they pick a topic, and then they go over it. And they go, oh, here's what we're going to talk about this week. Here's what we're going to talk about this week. She usually starts off, they talk about best practices. They talk about tips and hints. And so I like listening to it because it's kind of fun just to hear other people talk about the way they do things. I find myself a little bit sometimes going, no, this is the way you do it. And, of course, I'm not on the call to do that. Anyway, GTD Virtual Study Group. I think it's at gtdvs.com. Let's see. Yeah, gtdvsg.com. gtvvsg.com. And they go back a while. I mean, it goes back pretty long time ago. It's kind of neat. It's a neat little podcast. It's a different kind of podcast because it's basically a conference call. It's about an hour. It's free. And sometimes they hit some neat topics. Someone will get on a little riff and they'll really get going. And you hear about different tools that people use. So if you're not a Mac user and you can't use OmniFocus, or everybody talk about their different tools or how they handle certain situations. It's pretty cool. All right. Well, that's an hour and 21 minutes of your life. Hopefully you are weekly reviewing right after this. You can follow Mr. Review and see his weekly tweets at Just LLC. I post occasionally about GTD at Jason M. Atwood. Of course, the company's at Arkus Inc. if you want to follow all our blog posts and our news. Facebook.com/Arkus Inc. We're on the Success Community Group, which we have our own CloudFocus Weekly. With I think about 150 people in there now. That's great. We're on LinkedIn as well, Google Plus, and of course for the podcast, subscribe and review in iTunes and Stitcher, which are the 2 big ones.
Did you mention your group?
Oh, good on you. I have a group also in the Success Community Group called. This is the Salesforce Success Community Group. So if you're just landing in the middle of this, not knowing what we're talking about. If you're a Salesforce customer, you get success.salesforce.com. There's groups, and I have one called the GTD, where I post only, but I think people consume. It's got about 85, 86 people in it now. So I post articles and podcasts and things that I find. It's my little sharing and giving back. This one will definitely be in there. All right, so until next week, Justin, Jason saying enjoy those GTD days. And cloudy, I guess, if you want.